You're listening to Feel Good Astrology with Louisa Tanner Munson. To request a personal reading with Louisa, go to www.feelgoodastrology.com.
Hi, it's Louisa Tanner Munson, and this is the last part of the Uranus Through the Houses series. So we're looking at the 12th house now, and the first part of this podcast is dedicated to people who have Uranus in the 12th house in their natal birth chart. And then the final part of it will be what happens to you as Uranus transits through your 12th house. Whew. Now, I took a deep breath there because I was wondering how I was going to talk about it, because I have Uranus in my 12th house. And for me, it's had it's had a particular flavour, really. Now, the first thing to ascertain is if your Uranus is in the 12th house, is it by the ascendant? Because it could also be in the 12th house and conjunct the ascendant, which will have an even greater meaning. But, you know, that's for you to find out in your birth chart. And if it is conjunct the ascendant, then also listen to my recording of the first house, because there will be some shared response there. Anyway, the 12th house is known as the house of our undoing and the house of our unravelling. It's quite maligned, really, the 12th house. It is like I think of it as the unconscious mind, the storehouse of our soul, the Akashic records. It is vast and infinite and holds every little thought and feeling you've ever had. And it's all stored there in your 12th house experience. Now, people with very, very strong 12th houses have very good memories, or they tend to. And a lot of their behaviours are based on their memories because they hold on to them, and that's where they get their meaning from. The 12th house, indicating the unconscious mind and possibly the Akashic record or the unconscious mind of the universe, it also is the place, the natural home of people who channel, who pull information through the airwaves, or who filter it through. And I guess if you're talking about Uranus, which is, if you look at the symbol of Uranus, it looks like a TV aerial from like the 1970s and 80s and 90s, like the TV aerial. Well, that's how it looked. The Uranus is an aerial. It picks up on information in the airways, unseen information that you can't pick up, but you can tune into. So if you've got Uranus in the 12th house, it's quite possible that you pick up on a lot of information. And I hope for your sake that if Uranus is in the 12th house in your case, that the information you pick up on, you do know that you channel it right. Because it could be very scary if you've got that and you don't realise what information is real and what information isn't. The 12th house is vast. It represents all information. And people with a lot of planets in the 12th house often have real boundary issues because they see, feel, and hear not just, their own thoughts and feelings, and, they hear everything. They pick up stuff from the people they interact with. They pick up energies from the homes they're in, the places they go to. But also they pick up things from other dimensions, from my own experience as a child. I would see things transposed on my day-to-day living. I would see like another room within the room that I was in, like I was seeing two dimensions transposed on each other. And it wasn't like that all the time, but a bit like a TV receptor, I could all of a sudden, I'd get a faint appearance of something, and then I think, what is that? And as I ask, what is that? Like my mind tunes into it. And that's a little bit like, like if you're trying to tune your radio, you hear a faint beat of something, you think, oh, that's a song I like, hang on, and you just turn the dial a little bit, and all of a sudden you hear your favourite song. And it's a bit like that. So if you've got Uranus, the upstart, the disruptor, the information that comes through the airwaves, the sudden, shocking, rebellious, independent, all of those thoughts coming at you from a place of infinity, it can be quite shocking. So if you have a child that has a 12th house Uranus, it's worth really listening to them, because they might say some things that are quite unusual. It wouldn't be unheard of to hear a child with this kind of pattern, or with a very strong 12th house in general, talking about past lives, or saying, oh, Nanny just told me this, when you know that Nanny's died and passed away many years ago. So you want to pay attention to children who talk about other realities, and help guide them through it. Possibly what's not very helpful is telling them that what they're seeing and feeling and perceiving is wrong, because irrespective of your viewpoint, because Uranus is to do with independence and independence of thought. And if you make someone wrong for what they're saying, you're likely to create some real psychological damage, especially if it's in the 12th house, which is where your memories and your thought forms are stored. So you want to do everything that you can to support the person with the 12th house Uranus, because it is deeply sensitive and psychic, and it picks up on everything. The 12th house is associated with the sign of Pisces. And if you have a lot of planets in Pisces, or have a strong Pisces energy in your chart, as well as a strong 12th house, then you've got like a double energy of this going on. But Pisces is like an ocean. We can all see, like the first 30 meters, first few meters when you look into the ocean, if you're snorkeling or something. Because our eyes can see a certain distance. And if you've got a torch, and if you've got equipment that you can dive down, you can see a bit further. But for most of the ocean, it's unseen. You can't see it. You can't possibly begin to experience the whole of the ocean simultaneously. You just can't do it through the medium of our human body suits. It's just not possible. And so I guess with Pisces energy or 12th house energy, all you can do is be aware that there's something in the ocean that doesn't quite feel right. And so you're groping around in the dark, trying to find where that source of this discomfort is, or the source of joy is. And you might have a flashlight, a torch, and you might be able to shine the light on different areas of the ocean. Or, if you prefer the analogy of looking in the cellar, or looking in the attic, looking for something that is there, but you can't remember where it's been stored, then it's a bit like that. You can only ever see what the light is being shone on. And the 12th house just covers everything. It covers our hidden fears, our unconscious beliefs about ourselves. It can be quite a frightening place if you don't have support to guide you through it, because so much lives in the place of the 12th house and in the sign of Pisces. So Uranus here creates disruption and shocks and upsets to do with the great unconscious mind. Now, people with a strong Uranus in the 12th house are very unboundaried, because they've got the shocking energy in the place of boundaries, in the place that is unboundaried. So it's almost like it's very, very difficult. You feel everything, but you can't always perceive where it is and how to understand it. So it's very useful to have parents that support you, or just people around you that can support you through this experience. If you're not the parent that can understand it, then find someone in your community that can help your child with a 12th house, or your teenager, or your partner with a 12th house Uranus. Whatever's going on, it really helps the 12th house Uranus person to have some support to be able to explore the part of their mind that is shocked and independent and disruptive. People with this kind of thing can have sudden depression and addictions and things like that, that often are programmed from times gone past for different reasons. I think therapies like that reprogram the way the mind works, like hypnotherapy, timeline therapy, NLP, are really useful to people with a strong 12th house, because they naturally do want to explore. They naturally do want to understand what goes on in their mind, because they're aware that there is part of them somewhere that's not quite working as they want. And they're also aware that it can be reprogrammed, but finding where that little thought lies is often quite a challenge. So the 12th house is rich. And if you've got Uranus there, it can be very, very rich, but it needs support. It really, really does. People with the 12th house Uranus are quite psychic, clairvoyant, hear things, see things, feel things. They're perfect for any kind of healing once they've gone through their healing and they get to grips with what it is that they do. They are fabulous at intuiting trends and sensing what's occurring in the world and talking about it. They like exploring the darkness that a lot of people are too scared to look at. They have a natural affinity with death and understanding death and the passages of time. And they want to bring light, sudden light and insight and awakening to these parts of their lives. So they're difficult to understand, probably a little bit private, but if you can support them, and if you are this person, I would say for those parts of your life that you've not been able to work out, think about some kind of psychological work that you like and works for you. If it's hypnotherapy, go for that. But there's probably loads of other things like brain entrainment. But there's an absolute fascination with all these kinds of subjects. They're often interesting things like UFOs, ancient civilizations, anything that's been kept secret. So ancient civilizations, ancient cultures, ancient spells. It's a very magical place. There's a lot of witches or conjurers or wizards with a strong 12th house. You might expect to find conspiracy theorists or truthers or people who want to question the unseen narratives, because your bullshit monitor is very, very strong. You know, like a lot of people will listen to the news and just think, oh, that's the news. But your instincts are so strong that you'll often hear something and you know that it's not the truth. And so a lot of people will intuit and find out and research. Investigators, strong investigators, personal investigators and stuff. Criminologists would have a very, very strong 12th house because they like to look in the darkness and look at the secrets. Anyway, if Uranus is about to go into your 12th house, I think it's a time to get really real with yourself, because Uranus will get you real. If you can see it coming, if it's like a couple of years away, that's all well and good because you've got a bit of time to prepare. But it's really important that you get to grips with the parts of your life that you keep secret or have shame, guilt and anger about. Those parts of your life that aren't working, those parts of your life where you know you have behaviours that you're trapped in because you can't seem to find the way out of them. Now is the time to start working on that, because when Uranus goes through that area, all hell could break loose. Your unconscious patterns can come up and be reevaluated, and yeah, I mean, that causes havoc. It's a bit like all those things that you've kept private about yourself. All of a sudden, the light is shone on all of them, and you can't predict when it's going to shine the light on your shame. You can't shine the light on. You don't know when the light's going to be shone on your sexual past. You don't know when the light's going to be shone on your most embarrassing moment, but you know it's going to happen. So I think, you know, there's a reason why the 12th house is associated with your undoing and your unraveling. It's a natural time of unraveling. It's a natural time of death. I'm not going to say you're going to die necessarily, but if you were to look at the natural flow of life, think of plants, seeds, and annual plants in particular. So, you know, your annual plants, they're seeds, they sprout, they grow roots and they start growing taller and growing leaves and fruits or flowers, whatever it is that leads them to produce seed. And then they produce seeds and they get the conditions right, and then they know that they're entering a phase of drying up and desiccating, so those seeds can be released and they can reproduce themselves in a new way and evolve in a new way. And the 12th house is very much like allowing yourself to die. And I'm not saying you're going to die, but I mean, we're all going to die one day, but it's the allowance, it's the letting go of who you were and giving yourself the opportunity to grow into something else. The plant knows when it's desiccating. The plant knows that it's drying, its roots aren't able to absorb nutrients anymore, its leaves are withering and it can't pick up on the sunlight anymore, and photosynthesis has stopped, the seeds are released. It knows that seeds carry its DNA into the future, and in its seeds is extra information, like environmental information from this incarnation. The seeds have evolved for the conditions that the plant has just been through. And that's the whole purpose of the 12th house, is that as Uranus goes through your 12th house, you are in the phase of desiccating, of shedding your seeds, to do with shame, to do with guilt, to do with anything to do with your unraveling. And if Uranus is going through here, it could be a really tough time if you're hiding things and you're not prepared to release those seeds and let part of your life die away or part of your ego die away. So it's a great time to get really real with yourself if you can see it happening. If you're already in the middle of Uranus transiting through your 12th house, then I guess what you need to be really aware of is the fact that there's probably already been quite a bit of chaos going on in your life for a certain period of time, where you may well have been depressed or had a breakdown and felt like you were forced to unravel, forced to crumble, forced to change. And it's all part of the process of you coming back to life in a new incarnation, not literally, but, coming back in a new, stronger, more resilient form. Remember, Uranus is like an environmental change that kind of blows wind at you. It's a hurricane, it's a flood, it's an earthquake in your life. And here you are tested to the max about your resiliency, so that when that flood, that hurricane, that earthquake has shook you to your core, you can pick yourself up again as Uranus goes into your first house, and you are a radically more brilliant person in so many different ways. That's the whole purpose of it. So take heart. I think it's one of the most difficult positions to have Uranus going through, and it's not something that everyone is going to go through. Uranus takes 84 years to get round. If you live beyond 84 years, then yes, you'll definitely have Uranus go through your 12th house, but not everyone's going to experience it in their lifetime. They just simply won't. I was very fortunate that my Uranus is just before my ascendant. It's pretty much on my ascendant, but it's a couple of degrees before, well, a little bit more than that. And when Uranus went over my ascendant and caused big change for me was when my little sister was born. So I had a really small level of time where Uranus was going in my house of unraveling. But, if you're going through this in your mid-30s or in your mid-40s or in your 60s, you're going to have a very, very different experience. If you're going through it in your 20s or your teens, each of those different positions has a radically different meaning and interpretation and potential. So I would say if you're going through this, if someone very close to you is going through this, if your child or your partner are going through this, and you want to talk about this in respects of how to manage it, how to make it work really effectively for you, then please do not hesitate giving me a call. Absolutely. Drop me a line, say this is what we're going through, and we'll have a look through your chart and sort something out, because it could be particularly grueling. There are certain things that can be quite hard. That's one of them. It is leading you to the start of your new life. And, if it happens to you sort of, in your 20s, 30s, 40s or whatever, you will remember the first part of your life as book one, part one of my life. And then you'll have a very distinct part two. So anyway, hope that's useful. Thank you so much for listening to the Uranus series. Drop me a line if you've got any comments, or if you want to see more of certain things and less of others, then just let me know, because this is something that I'm creating for you to help you. It would be really bad if it wasn't of use. Anyway, take care for now, and thank you so much for listening.
You've been listening to Feel Good Astrology with Louisa Tanner Munson, and this recording has been made possible by all you lovely supporters at Patreon. To request a personal reading with Louisa, go to www.feelgoodastrology.com.